Well, hello and good morning. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys catching us a little bit later today, 6:30, straight up here on the Farzy Show at the Steven Singer Studios. Appreciate you guys hanging out as we got a little technical difficulty worked out. Much appreciated for you guys still sticking around. We got a jam-packed show for you, as one might assume. We got Geoff Mosher coming up from Inside the Birds podcast. He'll be talking to us about all things that went on with the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday in terms of the front office, in terms of Devontae Smith, in terms of no 11-on-11s, no 7-on-7s. They're just kind of out there, kind of not even, but sort of playing Thanksgiving football like you and I would with our friends and family and cousins and whatever on Thanksgiving. That's pretty much what they're doing right now at the NovaCare Complex. But there's a couple interesting things that we'll be able to kick around with Geoff, and then something I just want to kick around with you, and that's Brandon Brooks. We're going to get to what he had to say yesterday because it's probably the most uplifting thing you can hear from a man who has torn his ACL twice and is now trying to come back the second time from doing that. And a guy that's also battling that, the age thing, which plagues so many athletes. Because Father Time, it gets the best of everybody. Well, except Tom Brady, because he's an alien. But anyway, we'll talk to Geoff Mosher about all things Eagles. We got some Phillies news we're going to get into today. And we got the 10-9-8 76ers getting things underway once again with the Washington Wizards. But before we go there, let's just start with this real quick. Yes, let that start your Friday. Yes. Let that start your Friday. Feel good? Now it's Friday. You know what I'm doing later today? I'm playing a little golf. I'm actually going to go out there and hit a little white ball around. So I'm very excited that it's Friday. And Joel Embiid's got me in that Friday mood, that Friday feel. Let's start it off with the Phillies. Go almost in chronological order here. Yesterday's game was on YouTube. And that's the world we live in. Quite literally right now, the YouTube world, the digital world. I, for one, I don't know how you feel about it. I, for one, love the YouTube broadcast stream. I love the YouTube stream of Major League Baseball. I think they provide so much more content. I feel like the broadcast itself is just that much better. I feel like the way they relay the stories of the game and the stories of the franchises are so much better. I love me a YouTube baseball stream. And yesterday, I really enjoyed it, especially because they had a couple of different guys mic'd up. One of the guys they had mic'd up just happened to be the hero of the game, and that man's name was Rhys Hoskins. Hoskins steps to the plate yesterday in the fourth inning and gets knocked down by a fastball at his face. And what does he do? He bounces right back up, and he belts a home run to left center field. His second one of the series, puts the Phillies in front, 1-0. And what was interesting about this, because he was mic'd up, you could hear everything. He let a little bit of a curse word go. You could hear him again yell at the bench, the same thing he did 2 nights ago, where he yelled, hey, let's bleep and go. And he did the same thing again. Then later, while he was still mic'd up, he's talking to somebody who's on first base, one of the Marlins, and he goes, yeah, I probably let a bad word go. Sorry, Dad. And you hear the little apology. It just takes you into the game more so than anything else that we get to see in Major League Baseball. But overall, what matters most is the fact that the Phillies at least took 2 of 4 from the Miami Marlins in this series, and they at least split with them. And that's something that is next to impossible for the Phillies, because the Marlins, as we've talked about all week long, have simply just had their number over the last couple of years. And I promised I'd get to these numbers just the other day, and I never did, but I will get to them in the very near future. I'll get to them today. Numbers from Jason Stark on how much the Phillies just get the crap beat out of them by the Florida Marlins. We'll talk about that. And now the Phillies go on, they stay in Florida. Now they go to Tampa Bay, and they're going to take on the Rays for a 3-game series there. Just a lot to get to with baseball and everything. But one thing I do want to mention is I was very wrong. And I've mentioned this many times. Odubel Herrera is just playing some great baseball right now. And I'm trying to judge everything, as I have throughout the whole process here, based on just baseball. And what we have seen from Odubel Herrera based on just baseball has been a pretty damn good center fielder for this Phillies team. And I didn't think he'd get to that point. I still don't think he's going to be the hitter that he is now for the rest of the season. But while he's doing it right now, let's bask in it. Right now, Odubel Herrera is hitting .278 in the month of May. He's got a couple of home runs. He had a couple of extra base hits yesterday. a double and a triple, scored a run for the Phillies yesterday also. It's really, and he's been playing great in center field, defensively speaking. I'm blown away. I'm amazed. I'm astonished by it, actually. And yesterday, Joe Girardi talked about his center fielder after the game. Here is the Phillies skipper talking about Herrera.
It's nice to see. He's having a chance to rewrite his story a little bit, to try to change people's view of him, to try to show his teammates how he's changed and the fans and the organization how he's changed. And he's playing really well.
That is probably the best way you could just sum it up. I don't know about rewriting any story, but what I do know is that he is a much better ball player than what we saw 2 years ago. Because the thing I'll always go back to is that for 6 months, he was a 220 hitter. He was an all-star, and then he just fell apart as a baseball player. And that, above anything else, just in terms of trying to follow him as a baseball player, that above all else was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. You're going to keep this guy around? He's a 220 hitter. And he wasn't playing that great in center field anyway. Like, why keep him around through this type of turmoil that he brought upon himself? Why keep him through all this? And this is why they kept him. So we'll continue to follow him, obviously, throughout the rest of the season. That brings me to this little thing here. Brandon Brooks is one of my favorite athletes in Philadelphia. I really enjoy conversations with him if I get to talk to him in the locker room. He's a character in his own right. I told you guys a story a while ago when I was walking out of the NovaCare complex and out walked Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks. And they were like chumming it up like a couple of kids at a sleepover. And Lane looked over and goes, all right, you want to talk to Forrest and Bubba? And I was like, what? And Lane, of course, was referring to himself as Forrest Gump, while he was referring to his good friend Brandon Brooks as Bubba. That, to me, just was hilarious. But anyway, ever since then, I was like, these two are just two hysterical dudes. And what was interesting yesterday during Brandon Brooks' press conference was Paul Domowitch of the Inquirer, who I have to get on the show at some point, reads a Lane Johnson quote to Brandon about getting older and doubt creeping in as they get older as athletes, right? And he reads this quote to Brandon Brooks, and Brandon's coming back from injury again. He's on the wrong side of 30, as people like to say. But he gets read this quote from Lane Johnson. Paul Domowitch reads to him, and he gets asked to respond to it. And here's how Brandon Brooks responded to the idea of getting a little older and the idea of, again, coming off of injury and some doubt starting to creep into his mind. Here's Brandon Brooks on that.
I think me and Lane, within ourselves, I mean, there is no doubt. I think it's just more of like the outside, right? So, for example, basically I've had back-to-back Achilles tears. I'll be 32 this year, things like that. But I think the biggest thing that everybody's forgetting is I've torn my Achilles before, and when I came back, I was the best, period. So with that being said, like, what tells you it would be any different this time? And that's exactly how I feel.
The best coming back from an Achilles injury. I was the best coming back from that. The best. In all football. He was rated the number one right guard, in all of football. That right side of the line of scrimmage, if you were Carson Wentz, you were feeling pretty good about yourself. If you were Nick Foles, you were feeling pretty good about yourself that you had that right side of the offensive line intact. Last couple of years, it's had its issues. Lane Johnson certainly has had his issues. Brandon Brooks has certainly had his issues. And now they're both looking at it from the perspective of, how do we get back to the form that we were at just a couple of years ago? How do we get back in sync to the point that we were at just a couple of years ago? How do we stay on the field the way we were a couple of years ago? That's the biggest question that's going to be facing this offensive line is, can they stay healthy? You have a bunch of guys. Jason Kelsey's one of them. Isaac Seumalo's younger, but he's had his injury issues. Jordan Mailata is younger, but he's the type of guy that you just don't know about yet. I think he has earned that right tackle, that left tackle spot, but he's got to be able to stay on the football field in terms of skill and make sure he doesn't step back from what he was at 2 years ago and continue the progression and doesn't have a regression. So it's a lot of questions. And I know the number one thing we'll talk about with this team is how successful they'll be is based on the quarterback. Well, if the quarterback's not protected, guess what? It's all going to fall apart, unfortunately. But that's what Brandon Brooks was getting into yesterday. But I love the fact that it was like, look, I've done this before. And when I did come back before, I was the best, period. So I love the confidence that goes into all that. Before we get to Geoff Mosher, I also want to say that a little bit later in the program, we're going to have a Farzy in the field for you. It's at a very special event. It's at that 600-foot cheesesteak they were assembling in South Philadelphia. I went down there. My man Tony Gavada told me about it, and we'll let you see that version of Farzy in the field. Brought to you by the great people of FanUp, coming up in just a little bit today. Sixers tip-off, 7 o'clock, Saturday night, tomorrow night in D.C. I'm watching the NBA playoffs last night, and I just feel like the Bucks have a personal vendetta against the Miami Heat. If you remember last year, the Bucks were the best team in basketball. Number 1 seed, right? They go up against the Heat in the second round, and Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat blow the Bucks out of the water in the second round of the playoffs to the tune of a 5-game series, taking obviously 4 games to 1 in favor of Miami. So what do the Bucks do? The Bucks go out and get a little bit of an arms race going on. Drew Holiday being added to that lineup, of course, probably the most notable right there. At the trade deadline, they get PJ Tucker. They made some additions to that roster, and then what do? They happen to draw Miami again in the first round of the playoffs this year. The first game, if you remember, went to overtime. Since then, the Bucks have destroyed Miami. In the last 2 games, they have won by an average of 32.5 points or 31.5 points. And I was reading this. The only time the Heat have lost 3 times this year to a team by 30 or more, by 29 or more points. All 3 of those losses have come by way of the Bucks. Ain't that something? Revenge is a dish best served cold and in the following year's playoffs. That's probably the best way to serve that. And the only reason I bring this up is because, and it's not a revenge factor by any means, but just in terms of how the Bucks had a very close game in the first game of the series and then just found a way to dominate pretty much from that point on. And they'll probably wrap up the sweep on Saturday, tomorrow. But I just see the Sixers manhandling the Wizards from here on out. I thought there would be that game to steal. That would be game 1, as I've been telling you, as we've talked about. But, man, it just seems like the Wizards can't find a way to get any diversity in their scoring. Bradley Beal is the guy that has just he dropped in 33 points in both games to lead the team. No other player has come up with, no other player has come up with even a 20-point performance. Russell Westbrook's offense has been obviously underwhelming in this series so far. And you look at the Sixers, Tobias Harris comes out, leads them in game 1 when Joel Embiid is off the court early because of foul trouble. Very next game, you have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons come out with 22-point performances. Then also Tobias Harris still drops in 19 for you. And you end up emptying the bench and get scoring there where Tyrese Maxey's getting you double digits in scoring. Like the Sixers team is so remarkably deep. I didn't even expect them to be this deep going into the playoffs, albeit against an 8 seed in the Washington Wizards. But ain't the question, man. If you're just talking about this series, I don't see how the Wizards get another game. And I thought, you know what, there'll be that game where Bradley Beal goes just bonkers and he's knocking down threes and there's nothing you can do about it. And there'll be that game where Russell Westbrook is just doing anything he wants on the court and he can't do anything about it. Yeah, no. I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening even a little bit. Sixers will win the next 2 games. Hopefully get a little bit of a break before they move on to the second round of the playoffs. But bottom line is I just hope that Saturday around, let's say, Saturday around, Saturday night, around 9:30, we're doing this. Yeah, that's right. Could watch that all day. Without further ado, we're going to get to Geoff Mosher in just a second to talk a little birds. But I do want to tell you about my friend Steven Singer of Steven Singer Jewelers, the other corner of 8th and Walnut, or at IHateStevenSinger.com. Steven Singer Jewelers, one place, one price. You go in there and you get taken care of because every single day they got the sale going on. And what's the sale? The sale is the perfect price. There's no promo code to read you here during this advertisement. No, sir. What you do is you go in there and you get taken care of by real jewelry experts. And you can just relax and try to think about what you want to buy, not about how you want to negotiate, because that's what the perfect price does for you as a customer every day. You don't have to go in there and saying, all right, they're going to knock this off. I'm not going to buy it unless they can knock this off. No. You go in there, you just pick out what you like, and you get it at the perfect price every single time. You're never taken advantage of. Other jewelers, they mark things up just so they can knock a couple of bucks off right in front of you and make you feel like you're getting some kind of deal. Guess what? Not a deal. Not a deal. Go to Steven Singer, you get taken care of. That's what I do. That's what I send my friends and family to do. That's what I'm sending you to do as well. The other corner of Eighth and Walnut, IHateStevenSinger.com. Make sure you take advantage of one price, the perfect price every day at IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, let's go and talk to our good friend from Inside the Birds podcast, along with Adam Kaplan. Joining us on the Zatos Investments guest line, our good friend, Mr. Geoff Mosher. And joining us now on the Zatos Investments guest line, friend of the show. Please welcome in from Inside the Birds podcast, along with Adam Kaplan, our good friend Geoff Mosher joins us here. What's going on there, Moshe?
Marc Farzetta, you bald mother. How you doing, buddy? It's good to see you. What's going on?
What am I doing bad? I'm never doing bad. I always feel bad. You know why? Because I am a bald, my initials. Anyway, now, just real quick, I got to get this out of the way. Father of the Year, Geoff Mosher. You're looking to pull an all-night little trip here with the family where you're going to be driving, I assume, to your little vacation destination with 2 kids and a dog?
I'm a big, I want to drive, but my wife also wants to drive because I think both of us know it passes time a little quicker when you've got 2 kids and a dog. If you're in the driver's seat, you get left alone a little bit. Everybody respects that you got to pay attention. So we're going to probably have to duke it out to see who starts driving first.
Wow. Well, a couple of alphas when it comes to road trips of the Mosher family.
Yeah, she's an alpha, and I try to be, right.
Good job on you, man. Hey, speaking of alphas, that Julio Jones fella, how's that for a transition? He's a bit of an alpha, and he's looking to get out of Atlanta. The first thing I want to ask you about this is a little back and forth that he had live on the air with Shannon Sharpe. What did you make of that little exchange between the two? Did you think it was scripted? Did you think Julio Jones knew what was going on? Or was it something that was a little too spur of the moment?
Man, am I allowed? Is it against the rules of a NFL reporter to admit that they did not see it? They just heard about it.
Well,
asking for a friend.
Gotcha,
Adam Kaplan. No, I didn't see it. I heard about it. I did, in reading about it, wonder if there was some scripting going on there. That's a pretty good way to get the message out. But if you're to, read what they talked about and what they said, I mean, apparently this has been in discussions for quite a while. So it's not like the Falcons woke up that morning and like, whoa, he wants out, So I don't know that he was trying to plant a seed. Maybe he thought that would help move it a little faster. Kind of like how all of a sudden on draft night is when the whole Aaron Rodgers saga just hit the cyberspace. It's not like the Packers didn't know about it. But all of a sudden, one camp is pushing that storyline at a very convenient time to push that kind of a storyline.
Yeah, funny how that works. I can't think of too many guys. I mean, we knew back in the day that T.O. wanted to get the heck out of San Francisco, but I can't remember it being as public as this, where a player just flat out said, oh, yeah, no, regardless of how it came out, a player just saying publicly, oh, yeah, I don't want to be in Atlanta anymore. And by the way, I don't want to be with the Dallas Cowboys. Can you think of anything close to this?
No, I think it's hysterical that he said he didn't want to be with the Cowboys, right? I mean, that came out of left field. So it doesn't exactly help your team's negotiation go well when you pretty much say you want out, and then you automatically kind of eliminate one of the teams that tends to be more aggressive in that regard. But look, do I think it's going to get done? Yeah, I think he's going to wind up getting traded. Where he goes, that'll be fascinating. This has been the offseason of fascination as far as where players are going to wind up, starting with Carson Wentz and maybe with Aaron Rodgers and now Julio Jones.
Yeah. And Tim Tebow. I know he was all the rage going into the offseason. Yeah,
totally fascinating.
Now, you have a report out there already, and I know you guys talked about it with Inside the Birds, you and Adam Kaplan, about Julio Jones and the cap money that's attached to him, even though the cap has now gone up a little bit. That obviously helps the Eagles. But where would you see, if you had to guess, any chance Julio Jones would end up in Philadelphia?
I never rule anything out because I know how aggressive Howie Roseman is. And, when you see the Eagles mentioned in names, always with big name players, it's not a smokescreen or false. I know a lot of people think that the Eagles get used. In some regards, they might. But what Howie Roseman's deal is, and this is what I think is one of his strengths, is that if there's a really good player out there who can help the Eagles, and in most cases, a really good player at any position can help any team, he's going to make a phone call and he's going to find out all he needs to find out, whether it's how much it costs to get that player, why that player wants out, medically, how that player is doing, all of the research that it takes to do that. And then when that happens, of course, the teams go and say, well, we've talked to X team, Y team, Z team. So unfortunately, a conversation like that is just diligence sometimes can be construed as, oh, this is the lead horse in the race. I can't say that. I wouldn't say the Eagles are the lead horse in the race here, but there have been talks. Adam Kaplan report that there have been conversations. We'll see where they go.
But basically, because of a cap issue, you think that's the number one thing standing in the Eagles' way? Because they have the obvious draft capital to do it.
They have the draft capital. I would say the cap issue does stand in the way as far as, they'd have to make things work. Now, they're going to get some cap relief after June 1st, like a lot of teams will, because a lot of teams use that post-June 1st designation when they cut players earlier. The Eagles did it with Malik Jackson, and they did it with Alshon Jeffrey. So some of the money that they were on the books for those two guys now will go into next year's cap. Right. And then free up this year's cap. But they do have to sign their rookies. So, yeah, cap space is certainly, again, you can take on the $15 million, Mark, but then restructure it. You could say, you're going to get your $15 million because it's guaranteed no matter what. We'll give you a signing bonus. You'll get it up front, but we're going to spread it out over 2, 3, 4 years. I don't know how many years you want to spread out money on a 32-year-old wide receiver, but heck, Howie's been spreading out money on guys over 30 all off season. So it's doable. I don't know if that, though, is the number one reason, Mark, or the fact that you look in that they put in significant draft capital into Jalen Reagor, into Devontae Smith. I don't know that they want to take these guys off the field or take snaps away. I think you have to consider all of these things. Of course, you want to make your team better, but you don't want to stunt growth, and you want to also stick to your identity as a team that's kind of growing right now and starting to turn the roster over to younger players. And Julio is a great player, but he's also an older player. So it'd be a little bit inconsistent, but then there's also that mindset that he's such a great player that this helps the team and it helps the wide receiver room.
Let's get into that a little bit. Speaking with Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds podcast, having those players on the field with Jalen Hurts in OTAs, or at least getting some reps in. How are you hearing that all this is kind of working out right now with this Eagles offense?
Yeah, it's a revised offseason. So they traded the mandatory minicamp. They exchanged that for the idea of everybody, can come report, and we'll do as much as we can from a teaching standpoint. I think that's a good thing for this team. Of course, you'd love to have the 7-7s and 11-on-11s. You'd love to have the mandatory minicamp where you can do some things. But this is not a normal offseason, just like last season wasn't. And when a new coaching staff needs to get its hands on players and work with players, they're willing to make that sacrifice to at least do the teaching that needs to be done here. You have a lot of young players, first and second year players, and you have a whole new coaching staff. And I think it's what's going on right now, from what I understand, is a lot more of the teaching of the schemes and the working on fundamentals within the scheme. And that's really more important right now than, no guys not wearing pads trying to go up against each other, 7-7, 11-on-11s. Those are important, but before you walk, you got to crawl. And so they've got to have time with these coaches to learn exactly what the program's like, what the scheme is like, and what their responsibilities are.
All right, so let's talk about crawling right now as Shane Steichen's installing his offense. Well, barely installing his offense, more so than just running drills. And also Jonathan Gannon doing the same thing defensively speaking. What have you heard about those two and their schemes coming into play here?
Well, Jonathan Gannon's scheme is going to look a lot like Minnesota's scheme. We know that because the Mike Zimmer influence in him is strong. He does come from Indianapolis, which Matt Eberflus, his defense is more of a straight cover 2. When you heard Jonathan Gannon do his press conference, though, to me what stood out was he seemed to suggest, without giving anything away, that from an X's and O's and from a schematic standpoint, he's going to do a lot of what Minnesota does, or at least with his personnel. Obviously, the Eagles don't have like the caliber of linebacker that Minnesota has, but he's going to try to give those kind of disguise looks, a lot of twisting and stunting up front, Mark, which is something that Jim Schwartz did not do a whole lot of. A lot of disguise pre-snap coverage, or movement that Jim Schwartz did not do a lot of. So you're going to see a lot of that. But he did say with Matt Eberflus, with the Colts defense, he said that Matt taught me what I want my defense to look like on tape, meaning like the mentality. And that Colts defense plays like a lunch pail defense. They're fast to the ball. They're tough. They're aggressive. That's what he wants this defense to be built into. Schematically like Minnesota, attitudinally, if that's a word, or personality-wise, like Indianapolis. And so that's what he's trying to do. And, of course, Steichen and Nick Sirianni are working on installing what's going to look more like a pure West Coast offense. But the big thing with them, Mark, and I think there's some misconceptions based on some press conferences this week, is that what they're going to do is mix and match wide receivers and have them all cross-trained. So Jalen Reagor says, yeah, I'm going to see a lot more time in the slot. And it felt like the people reacted as if, oh, my God, he's now a slot receiver. I thought the whole thing about him was, well, we didn't want Justin Jefferson because we thought he was only a slot receiver. But That is not the case. He is not only going to be he's not Nelson Aguilar, a guy who clearly struggled on the outside, was lost in his own head, and had to have his career revived by only being a slot receiver. He and Devontae Smith and Travis Fulgham are going to, as I understand it, move around the field and be featured in different ways, in different packages, against certain defensive looks that will be different as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, to get back to the defense for a second here, Alex Singleton said the other day that he feels like he's a perfect fit for Jonathan Gannon's scheme. What do you think he does well that will, this scheme will benefit him even further?
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with him.
Okay.
I just because if we're looking at what Minnesota does, I'm not sure that's, Singleton is an ideal strong side. I'm not sure he's an ideal middle. He's a good sideline to sign, nose for the football type of player, but he's not a great coverage linebacker. And when you play a lot of that zone, that two deep zone that Minnesota plays, you need guys like Eric Wilson who are a little more rangy, right? And that's why he was brought in and also attacks the quarterback pretty well. Now, Alex, I think, has a nose for getting to Jim did use him as a blitzer, but he's also brought in Ryan Kerrigan here, not Jim, but the Eagles,
right?
Who's a lot better at getting to the quarterback than pretty much anybody else on the team. So I'm not exactly 100% sure where Singleton is going to fit. I do think he's the type of guy, though, that has been adaptable and works hard and is smart. So I imagine he's going to get his opportunity to show where he fits. Might be weak side, might be middle. We'll just have to kind of see how that – we have to see what Kerrigan does in this defense and what Eric Wilson is in this defense almost to figure out what Alex is going to do. But he's certainly still one of their more talented linebackers.
I have to ask you about this real quick because I know we really can't see a lot of these guys yet. As you said, no 7-on-7s, no 11-on-11s yet. But Devontae Smith, pretty much everything you're hearing, good news from what you've heard so far?
Yeah, I think the thing that you really like, what I hear about Devontae Smith and what this wide receiver room needs is that mentality. You know how Jalen Hurts said the other day, every day rent is due and I don't plan to miss a payment. That's what a boss says. That's what like a guy who lives and breathes football says. Okay. And I think that's what this wide receiver room needed. Even though Devontae Smith's a rookie, he comes in with that kind of Alabama mentality where every snap, every second that you're at the facility, you are 100% focused on football, getting better, and you are no nonsense and all business. And I think that is different. And I'm not criticizing other Eagles wide receivers, although Adam and I have talked that this wide receiver group is young. It didn't have that veteran tutelage last year because Alshon was hurt and Deshaun was hurt. And honestly, those two guys probably aren't known for their locker room leadership as some other receivers are. So I think that room needed to grow up. Now, Devontae's a rookie, but I think he's already got that in him where he is all business the minute he steps inside that building.
Last thing for you, it was an interesting announcement that the Eagles made today. Well, two interesting announcements in their front office. One, Dave Caldwell is going to be taking over, helping out in the front office. What exactly will his responsibilities be as a former, 8-year general manager with Jacksonville?
Yeah, Howie has done this in the past, right? I mean, Tom Donahoe is here, and he was a GM for both the Bills and the Steelers. And, of course, John Dorsey, who had been a GM, kind of has been with the team, and there have been other guys who have been GMs and high executives who have helped out the Eagles in either front office or consulting roles over the last few years. And so this is kind of just another. Andrew Berry being another one. So this is Howie just trying to add talent to the front office room. And Dave Caldwell, like you mentioned, has been a GM for a while. I know it didn't go well in Jacksonville from a record standpoint, but they did actually draft fairly well. They've always they're almost like the feeder system for the rest of the NFL at times, with Ramsey going on and Ngakoue, and there have been a lot of pretty good players on that team. And Allen Robinson,
AFC Championship game a couple years ago.
Right, Allen Robinson, and then Fournette went and won a Super Bowl. So they've drafted fairly well. It's just that they've been a mess in other areas. So here's a guy who is, most importantly, is a good person. This is a front office that kind of prides itself in having good people in it. And you just bring in an experienced guy to kind of fill a role there.
And then Catherine Raich is their vice president of football operations, supposedly the highest ranking woman in a front office in the NFL.
Yes, great for her. They think very highly of her. If you remember Jeffrey Lurie's, was it his last press conference where he mentioned he felt that he had 5 future general managers, and he started naming a few people who he was very impressed by, and Catherine's name came up. So interestingly, now her title being the vice president of football operations, I think I have that correct, is the same title that Andrew Berry held before he went to Cleveland. So, and it's my understanding it's going to be a similar type of role, which is a multi-layered role where you're doing a lot of scouting, tape watching, planning. I mean, your analytics are heavily involved, as we know that the Eagles really rely on. So it's going to be a higher title for her and a prominent role in their front office.
All right. Well, Geoff Mosher, Inside the Birds podcast, along with Adam Kaplan. The new episode just dropped on Wednesday, so make sure everybody checks that out. Good luck in your family drive. You got about 11 hours in the car.
Pray for me.
Let us all pray for you. By the time this episode drops, I hope you are safely at your vacation destination, my brother.
You and me both. Thank you.
Geoff Mosher joining us here on the Zatos Investments guest line from Inside the Birds podcast. Thank you, Geoff.
You got it, man.
I hope Geoff made it to his destination safely, of course. And I hope, Alex Singleton didn't come, charge at him from across the middle and say, "How dare you slander me, good sir, that I don't fit in this system." By the way, I was a little bit more involved in the chat during the interview than I normally am. You guys are on fire today. All you guys in that chat, you guys are on fire today. We'll check in with you guys in just a second, of course, with that social media check-in. But right now, I do want to tell you about the great people of Philadelphia Sports Nation. That's right, PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience. They cover all Philadelphia sports throughout social media when it comes to blogs and social media posts. So make sure you check them out, phlsportsnation.com. Oh, boy, I teased this in the comments, and here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how much I love Herr's fiery hot, fire-roasted sweet corn? Well, I'll tell you, Mally and Dan Schwartz in the comments, I love it this much. Look at this. It's out there, social media, on my Instagram, Facebook, as well as Twitter. I have to admit, my manager put these out, and I think they're fantastic. I think they're fantastic photos. Me really getting into it here. And then I try to go ahead and read some of the comments to you here. My good, Hugh Douglas, big man right there blowing up. I hope that's not a fat joke. Hope he's not calling me fat. Natalie Eganoff, my dear friend, stop it, is how I read it in her voice. That's my voice for just generally. Kyle Newbeck, friend of the show, third pick. Third pick was me throwing the popcorn up in the air. And then everyone else just being like, oh, it's the timing of a popcorn ad. The timing of a popcorn ad. Everyone's enjoying it. Mally said the first pick, Marc is watching a Sealski take. Come on, Mally. You guys were on fire with that. But speaking of fire, fiery hot, fire roasted sweet corn from Herr's is delicious. I'm not messing with you when I tell you this. I brought it out the other day on my step with my neighbors. And you know what? Next thing you know, the whole neighborhood's over enjoying some fiery hot fire roasted sweet corn from Her's because it is just that good. And here's the thing. You have a couple and you're like, that's delectable. And then you wait a minute and you're like, I could use a little bit more of that. Next thing you know, you got 5 more handfuls and you can't stop because it's just that good. And it's great for a barbecue. It's great for the beach. It's great for just sitting on the sofa watching the games, as I was enjoying in my social influencer pictures. Am I back? Am I back? I'm back! See, you're talking about fiery hot fire roasted sweet corn, and you just lose your damn mind. So I'm glad I'm back. Let's talk about Zatos Investments, our good friends over there at Zatos Investments. They're an up-and-coming luxury real estate and development company in the Philadelphia area. They design and develop top-of-the-line custom homes around the city, ranging from small single-family rehabs to ground-up new construction townhomes and condo buildings. Zatos also works closely with private investor base to make sure they're having substantial returns on their investment of 20 to 40%. These guys are crushing it right now in the Philadelphia real estate game. To see some of their properties and also see how you as well could invest with Zatos Investments, hit them up at info at zatosinvestments.com or simply visit zatosinvestments.com. FanUp brings us Farzy in the field, which you'll see in just a little bit here. They want to make sure that you're taking care of business with FanUp. Download the FanUp app in the App Store. Get 2,000 bonus points right out of the gate when you use promo code FANUP. The days of playing fantasy sports alone are over. Enter FanUp Super Fun daily and weekly contests. Answer fun questions. Rise on the leaderboard. Squad up with your friends and win even more. It's the only place where you can win brand prizes. So make sure you fill out your profile so they know what you're after. Any day, any week, any season, you could be the real MVP with FanUp. May the best fan win. And also, Steak and Maine and steakandmaine.com. I told you my wife and I are going to be going there anniversary weekend. We're going down to Annapolis, so we're going to be passing through Maryland. I'm going to stop over there, see my man Tony Cavada. I might even do a steak for lunch. It's an anniversary weekend. I don't care. All right. And maybe a little lobster as well. Enjoy a little lobster there because you get the freshest seafood, the finest cuts of prime meats, the delicious wine. I love a nice wine pairing with a steak. Forget it. Oh, my God. So good. Go to Steak and Maine. Check out steakandmaine.com. You can see for yourself how great this place is. My man Tony Cavada runs a tight ship down there with nothing but the highest quality meats, highest quality seafood, and delicious oyster bar that you have to try as well. I mean, the Travel Channel and the Cooking Channel called this the best place for steaks in America. You know what that means? When the founding fathers founded this country, you know what they said? Steak and Maine, make me some good steaks. That's what they said. It's in the Constitution or something. But anyway, Steak and Maine, steakandmaine.com. Make sure you check them out right there. All right, social media check-in brought to you by Steak and Maine. What time should I be there, Farzy? I assume is that my front step you're talking about there? Or is that going to Annapolis? Anyway, it's so much that you guys have just turned on fire in the chat that it's like hard to keep up with it at some point. Did Marc pay the fan to drop the popcorn on Russell? Come on, Dante. I wouldn't do that. I did say yesterday, though, that the popcorn was not fiery hot fire roasted sweet corn, simply because nobody would waste that. No. Nobody would waste that. What else do we have? Marc the influencer. Yeah, Dante, you got me pegged. Man, you guys still with the Sealski thing? There's just almost like too much to keep up. Whoa, did Dan Schwartz actually talk sports? Dan, are you actually talking sports out there? You guys like Rager in the slot? More speed, takes coverage away from Devontae, and can open up running lanes for Jalen. Whoa, buddy. Danny boy, easy on the sports. So we don't talk sports on this show. That's gosh darn ridiculous. A lot of people like it Singleton, so that's good. We all like Singleton. I like Singleton too. Craig, that was a great analogy. So don't you sell yourself short there, pal. Geoff checking in saying Tony's a legend. Tony is a legend. You're about to see how much of a legend Tony is, by the way. What else do we have? There we go. All right. Let's hear from more fans. All right, you guys are actually going to see my friend Tony Cavada in this piece here because he and my friend Luciano, I explain it in Farzy in the Field. It's a special Farzy in the Field. It's not quite as special as the LaSalle piece where we're trying to do some good. This is more a celebration of life. And it was the first time I was really out in public in this regard with a bunch of people I didn't know since the pandemic, since vaccines and all that stuff. I got fully vaxxed and all that stuff. But it was just great to be down there. I explained it all here in this week's edition of Farzy in the Field, brought to you by the wonderful people of FanUp. So make sure you check it out right here, Farzy in the Field. This Farzy in the Field covers a very special event celebration, and that's why FanUp proudly presents Farzy in the Field Mega Huge Ginormous Cheesesteak and Sixers Takes Edition. A couple of weeks ago, I got a text from my friends Tony and Luciano, and they told me to come down to South Philly for a birthday party. They said it was gonna be big. So, never to miss a good time, I headed down to 9th and Federal, where I was met by a ton of people and a 600-foot cheesesteak. The birthday party was for the owner of Rim Cafe on 9th Street, who is simply known as the Godfather, Rene.
We are making 600-foot cheesesteak. I'm gonna make it fast and easy and simple. We start from Gino's Steak, the famous Gino right there. You are going 3 blocks down the street. So we shot 3 blocks in the city to make 600 food.
He told me for his birthday, he simply wanted to bring people back together.
This year I said, you know what? I want to make it different. Each year I make my birthday and I bring everybody from all over the world. This year I said, you know what? I want to put everybody together. I want to put couple thousand people together.
While I was down there, I figured I'd say hi to some friends. When you hear me talk about Tony Cavada's Cavada Cellars wines, this is what he might pour it for you in. That right there. Machine gun action. Yeah, I'll drink that. And of course, get some piping hot sports takes. How far do you see the 76ers going?
At least to the finals. This is their year right here. This is it. Everybody's ready to go. Doc Rivers is leading the team. Joe's healthy. Here we go. All the way.
All the way. Go Sixers!
Sixers in 4.
Yo. Sixers fan right there too.
Yo, Sixers fan, where?
Let's go.
The process. Sixers fan as well as street sign fan.
Let
Toby
work. Let Toby cook. Let Joel cook. Let
Trust
Steph Curry
the
cook.
process.
Let's go.
All in all, it was a fun-filled trip down South Philly. Absolutely awesome to be out there with everybody at 9th and Federal. It was just a big party. I had never even met Renee before. And thank you to the great people at FanUp who sponsored that segment. I never met Renee before, and I was asking people about him, like, how's this guy the Godfather? Like, what's the deal? He's a Frenchman, right? He's a French guy from France. And he apparently just makes really good espresso. And I'm an espresso freak. And this is my espresso cup. I do have like ginormous hands, but this is specifically is how you say that word. This is specific. There's no whiskey in here, I swear. That's for later when I'm on the golf course. This is specifically for espresso because it's tiny. And usually I start my morning off, not usually, every day, 2 espressos in that. So I got to go down there for espresso sometime and just hang around just a wee bit. But thanks to all the people that stopped and talked to me and had themselves a good time. I understand they said that that's not a 600-foot cheesesteak because it wasn't like all conjoined, right? So I think they're going to work on doing that the next time around. But regardless, it was one long-ass row of cheesesteaks, and it looked delicious. By the way, the gun that Tony Cavada had there, like I picture, like if you don't know Italian people, that's how I think you picture Italian people pouring wine all the time. But that looked enjoyable, and I really hope that he does have that when I go down there coming up in a couple of weeks there. So my thanks again to everyone that stopped and talked to me while we were experiencing the good times of being back together as a neighborhood yet again. So that was great, and Always good times right there. Let's go ahead to we did our social media check-in. Our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars and SkyMotorCars.com. Told you about the Bucks taking care of business last night against the Heat. They're up 3-0. The Lakers, Anthony Davis, God bless you. We'll talk about that in a second in big bets. The Lakers, they were able to take care of business last night against that team that they're playing called the Phoenix Suns. So that happened. The other thing that happened was the Denver Nuggets. They beat the Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers get a 3 in the fourth quarter from Carmelo Anthony. They tie the score at 91-all. They battled back. The game's tied at 91. Then Austin Rivers rattles off 4 3-pointers in the final 5.5 minutes, I believe it is, of the fourth quarter, and that carried the Nuggets on to the victory over the over Portland last night. It was absolutely insane. Damian Lillard shot 5 for 16, I think it was, from beyond the arc. So he was hoisting the threes yesterday. So it was just a wild night in NBA playoffs last night. So we'll follow them again throughout the weekend. Now let's get to our big bets. Our big bet segment brought to you by DraftKings and DraftKings Sportsbook. Here's what I did last night. I told you that I wasn't sure. I was going to wait until the games were a little bit closer to kind of get a better vibe for what was going on. I couldn't believe the Bucks stayed as, I believe they were -1.5 favorites going into Miami. And I looked at that and I went, that's dumb. And I went ahead and I bet that. And I bet it a little bit more than I normally did because I was that confident. And sure enough, they spank the Heat again and they win. And I win. So that worked out. And then Anthony Davis was at a over-under, or his line was 25.5 points. Over-under that. I took the over because there's no way Anthony Davis was going to score under 25.5 points against the Suns. Sure enough, third quarter, I believe, is actually when he hit that. So the fourth quarter, it was one of those kick my feet up and relax type deals. So I loved every second of the NBA playoffs last night. I hit both my bets, and I told you before, if you got this feeling going for yourself, yeah, that's right. I'm playing it 3 times this show. I don't care. Friday vibes, babe. Friday vibes. If you're feeling it, and you're feeling it with me here, the Sixers are going into Saturday tomorrow night -5.5 point favorites on the road. I like the Sixers to cover that and continue to take care of business and continue to roll as this series goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us, even though we had a late start today. Much appreciated. Thanks for following the show. Thanks for subscribing. We're now over 900 subscriptions. I can't thank you guys enough. Seriously, it's awesome. Thank you very much for following the show, subscribing, and all that fun stuff. My thanks to Jim Hyden, who produced the program. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. I will be back with you guys on Monday. I'm not going to leave you. What, am I going to take a day off? What, are you kidding me? And we'll be discussing all things 76ers, as one might assume. And hopefully we'll be discussing the Phillies, taking a couple of games from the Tampa Bay Rays as they continue this long-ass road trip that they're on right now. In the meantime, have an awesome Memorial Day weekend, everybody. And thanks to all that have served and all that have sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice, made the ultimate sacrifice, including my old town ball teammate in high school, Travis Mannion, who I wear this bracelet for every day. Thanks to everybody who watched the show. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Take it easy.